Aggi, I want to start with you because you have been on the ground. You're along the Polish-Ukraine border. There have been reports of really long queues, hours-long queues. What is it that you're seeing? Who are you talking to, and what are they telling you?
Hi, Jen. So firstly, yes, the queues are still very long on the other side of the border. The waiting times have been reduced significantly than they were a couple of days ago. And that's clearly because there's been a lot of efforts to streamline this process. I was talking to someone earlier who's been trying to get people out of Lvov, who said that he was very impressed with the efforts on the part of the Polish authorities here to try and streamline the process out of these border regions and get people into secure locations inside the country.
Talk about who you're seeing, Aggi. I mean, is it a lot of young people? Is it a lot of students? What is it on the ground?
A great deal of people coming here right now is women and children, and you're seeing also quite a lot of elderly people cross the border. There's also the fact that there is also a lot of people from third nations that are also trying to leave the country at the moment, and they're also trying to get through the Polish-Ukrainian border. You see fewer and fewer Ukrainian men going through the border, but you do still see a lot of women and children.
And Chris, please jump in here because you and your team have been working very closely in the region right now. Talk about sort of how UNHCR is supporting refugees and helping them flee to neighboring countries and what they're doing and providing for refugees.
UNHCR is present throughout the region. We have over 100 staff who remain in Ukraine itself at the moment, who are doing everything they can to provide humanitarian assistance and protection to the people forcibly uprooted, but who have remained inside of their own country. In addition, as you've mentioned, there are large numbers of people crossing international borders now into neighboring countries, many of them into Poland, Romania, Moldova, and other countries in the region. My organization is there on the ground throughout the region, and we're really assisting national governments in providing the kinds of reception and responses to people fleeing in these circumstances who have very acute needs at the moment. We're looking to find anything that we can do and to deliver assistance and humanitarian aid at this moment for the people who urgently need it.
And Chris, what does that look like? I mean, how are you working with these countries? Because as many people know, that the situation is changing day by day, hour by hour. So what is the aid that you are getting to these people? What is it that they're needing right now?
Sure. First of all, I just wanted to let you know that in terms of numbers of people that we have now counted who have crossed borders into other countries, and this is based on information we're receiving from governments in the region. It's now over 875,000, and the numbers continue to rise very quickly, people fleeing in all directions. What we are doing, first of all, is using pre-positioned stocks of humanitarian assistance and cash that we had both inside of Ukraine in a number of locations, as well as in countries around the region. We are delivering that aid to people and to sites wherever it is needed as best we can. And we are helping coordinate the response across the region and inside of Ukraine to the people fleeing this conflict at the moment.
And when you talk about people fleeing this conflict, Aggi, I want you to jump in here because over the past few days, a lot of people have been surprised to find out that there was a pretty significant population of Africans actually in Ukraine. And there have been a number of reports that there have been some non-Ukrainians having trouble crossing into the border. Have you experienced that? Have you talked to anybody who has potentially had their own troubles?
Yes, Jen, I haven't spoken to anyone from any other country who's tried to cross the border. However, I have been speaking to the delegations from Nepal, from Côte d'Ivoire and from the Sudan that are all currently at the border in Medica trying to get their own citizens across this border. And when I spoke to someone who was a Nepalese volunteer trying to get people across the border earlier today, he was saying that he was concerned that it was getting harder for people from Nepal, for instance, in his case, to get across the border. I also spoke to a woman from Cameroon whose brother has been studying in Kharkiv, and he had been trying to cross the border for several days now, and she's still waiting for him in Medica.
Chris, how about you? Have you heard about this? And is the UNHCR supporting any of these efforts to help these individuals get across and get to safety?
Yes, of course. We've heard these reports. We have received assurances from governments that this is not official government policy to make it any more difficult for third country nationals who are also trying to flee Ukraine. Let's remember that Ukraine, there are many people from third countries, students, professors, workers, and let's not forget Ukraine is also hosting a number of refugees, including some from Afghanistan recently, who are also now fleeing the conflict. So we are aware of those reports. We have stressed the point that there can be no discrimination of any kind at borders when we're talking about human beings fleeing conflict on this scale. People must be able to reach safe territory promptly and without obstruction. And that is the message we are passing along to all governments. We have intervened, and we will continue to intervene to make sure that all people arriving at those borders fleeing conflict in Ukraine are treated equally.
And Aggi, just finally, since you're on the ground there, I mean, what does long-term aid look like for some of these people? Because no one really knows where this is going. I wonder if governments there are prepared to support these refugees long-term, past this short-term situation that's going on right now.
I think something that we're seeing at the moment, Jen, that is clearly a concern on the part of the EU, which obviously has had experiences of influxes of refugees in the past, is that they're very much concerned with getting people to have some form of residency within whichever European Union country they arrive, so that they can have access to the labour market and to education. And that is a proposal that the European Commission was suggesting this morning. And I think that that is probably what they're going to be looking at, is a concerted European response in order to make sure that when someone arrives, they're not just left to their own devices, they're able to have the support needed to enter the labour force in whichever country they enter.
Is that what you're hearing from people on the ground too, from refugees, Aggi? Are they anticipating to stay there and to take up residency? Did they anticipate not being able to go back to Ukraine?
From the people I've spoken to so far this morning, it seems like a lot of them don't really know what their next steps are, but it does also seem that they do want to make sure that whatever they're doing, they're able to remain in contact with the members of their family that are still in the Ukraine, and that while they may hope that this is a more temporary solution, I think many of them are seeing the possibility that this could become more permanent.